I'd like to welcome everybody today to this reception honoring former Mayor Bob Brown. Bob served the city well for 9 years, and we appreciate all his hard work. The city went through a lot in the last 9 years, especially the last 2 years, and he represented us well. And we're happy that so many of you have turned out today to honor him. All right, I'd like to recognize any elected officials that are here today or dignitaries. We appreciate you coming out. Thank you for spending time with us. Be sure to get something to eat. We've got a cake over here we're going to cut as well, so hang out for that. I noticed we also have our two of our former city managers, Keith Wright and Paul Parker, here with us today. Paul, did y'all make a drive up today? Yeah. Good. And Steve Floyd, I saw him somewhere around here. Glad to have you with us. And I want to thank our council members for being here as well. All right, we've got Bruce Green. He's going to say a few words about his time with Mayor Brown.
Thank you. You know, I was really glad to see Paul Parker and Keith Wright here. Paul brought me on as a city attorney a number of years ago, and then Keith brought me on as the deputy. But we've all served when Bob Brown was mayor. And so we've been through a lot together during that time. One thing I have to mention, I'm sort of the one that was untimely born in that group of city managers. But I never will forget, and I always will be thankful to Mayor Brown, because he's the one that came to me and he said, I just want you to think about it. Go home, don't say anything, go home, talk to your wife about the prospect maybe of becoming the city manager. And so I was stunned. I said, okay, but I went home, I told my wife, you know, the mayor was so supportive, and the council, and they've always been great. And so, if they think it's a good thing, maybe it's a good thing. So I came back here the next morning, and you'll probably remember this, but I sat down with him, I told him that, and he thanked me, and he looked at me, and he said, you kind of won me over. And so I knew then it wasn't a great vote of confidence the day before, but he said it was like, I thought you'd be a total failure, but he didn't say that, but he was very complimentary. But it was a great experience, especially this year. We went through a lot this year with COVID, with the ice storm, and he was a steady figure of leadership for the city of Lufkin. There are many people in the administration and even beyond the administration who are recipients of a Bob Brown note. And a number of you know what I'm talking about. Paul, Keith, they remember that. He was ever thoughtful. And when you had a difficulty or you were down, or it was even for a lawyer, when I was a lawyer, he would send me a note. And don't give up, don't give up. And it was always encouraging. So that's one of the things that stands out to us, his thoughtfulness and his ever steady hand. So we're very glad to be able to honor you today, and to see so many people here, and especially to see Paul and Keith back here. So congratulations, you've earned the opportunity not to be called on the telephone or receive an email and told to get things straightened out in Washington, D.C. So.
All right, Bob Enselman, the Honorable Judge Bob Enselman is going to come up and say a few words.
We're in trouble now. So all these people are saying all these nice things about Bob Brown, but I'm going to say this. When Bob Brown was mayor, we had dependable electricity. I know. Bob Brown can solve electrical problems. Bob Brown's been a good friend of mine, more than just a friend. As some of y'all may know, there's a bunch of old guys, and for some reason I guess I became an old guy overnight somehow. We meet it every day at the feed store, and that's where all the wisdom supposedly comes out. I've been doing it for 10 years and I haven't found a nugget of wisdom yet. But Bob Brown is probably one of the best people I've ever met in my life.
Amen.
Yeah. And if the world was full of Bob Browns, we'd have a whole lot of problems. And I think one of the things that resonates with me is how much he truly cares about everyone. And everybody standing here can tell you a Bob Brown story. But I'll tell you what I know about Bob Brown is he puts everybody first. There's not a time out there that Bob Brown is looking at Bob Brown and saying, look at me. So, I know he's really not wanting to be here because it's about Bob Brown. But Bob Brown, all these people out here do truly love you, and I want to tell you how much I love and respect you. Thank you, sir.
Gosh, you get all that?
Yeah, that tape's gone.
We've got Melinda Carty with Congressman Gohmert's office. She's going to make a presentation.
It's a pleasure to be here today on behalf of the congressman, and I work at City Hall. Our office is at City Hall, and I know on the mayor's last day there, it was such gloom and doom. Everybody was so sad that day, and all the ladies and the guys were all just really sad that it was his last day. And on a personal note, he's just always been very kind to me and always had very encouraging words, and I just really appreciate you, and you're going to be truly missed. Now, the congressman regrets that he couldn't be here today, but he did send something to present to you. This flag, which was flown over the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C., is presented to Bob Brown, Mayor, City of Lufkin, with appreciation for his dedication and tireless efforts on behalf of the citizens of Lufkin, Texas, which extend to the benefit of the entire state of Texas and our great nation, while exhibiting extraordinary leadership and exemplary character with a goal of making the city of Lufkin better than when he became mayor, with prudent observation of the city's grand history and a vision for its future, all the while demonstrating through his generous actions of selflessly serving his friends and neighbors, making manifest the reasons it is in God we trust. Presented on this day, June 24th, in the year of our Lord, the Honorable Louis Gohmert. Your certificate.
Trent, do you want to hold this microphone, or you may leave it on the stand? I was out at the Pentecostal campgrounds with Trent the other night. You're welcome. And let's just say if things don't pan out in your next election, I think you have a real future.
Thank you.
In,
Thank you. I was filled with the Spirit, Bob. You've been there. You've been there. We've done that welcome at the Pentecostal campground for several thousand people for a few summers.
And remember, these people are standing up.
I know. But they're in air conditioning. And I know what y'all are thinking. Ashby just got back from 5 months in Austin and he's going to be long-winded. Well, I'm going to try not to be. Real quickly, a couple of things I wanted to mention. First off, playing off my good friend Judge Inselman's story about having coffee every morning with the round table there at the feed store. I've had the honor and the pleasure every year or two, I'll go by there to get lined out, get my marching orders, and hear what I need to be doing better. And I'll never forget one of the first, this is years ago, one of the first times I went, they were kind of arguing over who was making coffee that day. And I was reminded of right after Bob married Tony, they had a similar argument, I understand, about who was responsible for making coffee when they got married. And Tony said, well, Bob, it's you, honey. You're supposed to be the one to make coffee. And Bob said, absolutely not. That is the wife's job to make the coffee every morning. And being a religious, fine Christian woman as Tony is, she went to the scripture. So later that day, she comes back to Bob and says, I found it. You're in charge of making the coffee. She says, what do you mean? He said, what do you mean I'm in charge of making the coffee? Show me. So she opens up the Bible, opens up to a certain book in the Bible and says, look right there. It says, he brews. Ever since then, Bob's been in charge of the coffee. You know, I was thinking earlier today what I would say about our dear friend Bob here, and a lot of times I can kind of think of a word or two or a phrase, and you know, Bob is, as you all know, is unique. I mean, he is a gem. He's one of a kind. And when I think of Bob Brown, there are a lot of adjectives and terms that come to mind. For example, he's a doer. He's a leader. He's a visionary. He's compassionate. He's the master ribeye sandwich maker. You know, he's a Christian. And Bob has done so much for our community over the years, not just as mayor. And with Tony at his side. And I'll never forget one of the first times that I had the privilege of dealing with Bob. I was pulling out of my house. He called me early one morning. He said, hey, Trent, he said, what do you know about the United Way here in Angelina County? And I said, well, I know they do a lot of good, but I don't know a lot. And he said, well, I'd like for you to serve as the next campaign chair for the United Way here in Angelina County. He was coming off of campaign chair, and he asked me would I be willing to do it. And of course, I didn't know what to say. I mean, it was Bob Brown calling me, asking me to do this. How can I say no? So I didn't. So I did not say no. I said yes. And I mean, it's one of the greatest calls I've ever received, because it really opened my eyes to what we do here in Angelina County for those people that we love and care about, and those that need our help. But what I didn't know until later that day, when I went by the office to kind of get my official orders from Carla Hyatt, our wonderful executive director for many years, is she said, oh, thank goodness you accepted. Bobby called 4 people this morning. But I still love you for making that call. You know, when Bob ran and got elected in May of 2012, we were coming out of one of the worst, we called it, as you may recall, the Great Recession that was from 2008 that really carried over to 2010. And we had seen quite a few job losses right here in Angelina County and in Lufkin in particular. And when he ran, his campaign mantra was creating jobs. And when I think back above all that Bob has really done and focused on and really moved our city forward, it's job creation. And I wish Bob Sanford was here so I could ask him. But under your leadership, Bob, we have, I know, created over 1,000 jobs in the city of Lufkin. And when I talk to people, and Mark, you know this having come off your recent campaign, when you talk to people, they want good jobs. They want good paying jobs. And you're right then and you're right now to continue to push our leaders and put your shoulder to the wheel to give people a meaningful job. And that's what you've been about. That's what a big part of your mayoral objective was. And I'm proud to say that you achieved it. And so thank you for leading us down the path to economic prosperity in terms of job creation in the city of Lufkin and Angelina County over the last several years. Bob is community-minded, as you all know. And I will tell you, over the years, 9 years for me, 9 years for you, we have done dozens of welcomes in and across Lufkin and Angelina County for different meetings, organizations, conferences, conventions that have been in this beautiful facility and places across our beautiful county. And the one thing that stands out to me about Bob is that a lot of times, and I think you guys can relate to this, a lot of times when you see a city leader, a mayor, or a county leader that gets up and welcomes people to their locale, their jurisdiction, you know, you always hear the obligatory, you know, spend money, fill up with gas and whatnot. But Bob had an uncanny ability to reach into the crowd and really make people feel special. And that he gave them a taste for how special this community really is. And that's something that I'll never forget about, you know, how you make folks feel, Bob. So I appreciate that. I've got two things I want to give you. Let's roll it in. The first one, and let me tell you, it's not easy to transport one of those from Austin, Texas without getting scraped up. The first one is an official state of Texas rocking chair for our beloved Bob Brown. Now, I've got two boys that can drive that'll help you get that home if you need some help. And, of course, the second thing that I have here, like Melinda, and I'm not going to read it, but I have a resolution here from the state of Texas and the Texas House of Representatives just honoring you, Bob, your life.
Bless you. Thank you. You're my friend.
Mayor, do you have anything you want to say?
I do.
All right.
Wow. Now, I thought this would be real easy, and y'all have made it pretty tough. And I thank you. I honestly do. I would give anything in the world if one little girl named Dina could have been here. But I thank Tana for coming and being here today. Tony's at home, and Tony's doing pretty good. But thank you so much. I want to start exactly October of 1977 when my dear friend, and I'll move forward quickly, but a dear friend of mine was the manager of Texas Power and Light in Lufkin, Texas, and the company and he decided that they needed an assistant manager in Lufkin. And James Curbo used my name, and James Curbo made his home in Lufkin, and I appreciate, he started Lufkin, Texas for the Brown family. Amen. Thank you so much for what you do. And then I will fast forward to probably December, and I'm not going to name the names, and you'll know why in a minute, but I had two young and restless invited me to lunch wherever you throw peanuts on the floor. And both of them are here right now, but they said, we want you to run for mayor. And I said, when? And they said, well, it's not until 2012, and this was December of 10, and I said, y'all have got a year to find somebody better. And I think they took the year off. So. But anyway, they created something that filled in a void in our lives, the Brown lives, and made me realize what a wonderful community this is. And when a guy that's got a borrowed lung drives from New Braunfels, Texas to be here, Paul, you and Sue, it means the world to us for you to be here, and thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate it. Steve and Cecilia, thank you. Keith and Amy, thank you. And I guess that's what it says about me being mayor. You couldn't keep a city manager. But I did the best I could with what I had, and I left you with Bruce. Remember that. Bye.
So after the election, we were talking around the office, and I heard from a lot of people. Of course, we wanted to do something to honor Bob Brown, and asked Kara, and asked John, and asked Bruce, and they all told me, nope, the man's not doing it. He doesn't want any kind of reception. And that's the honorable guy that you have here standing before you today. He's that kind of guy. So ultimately, I was the one tasked with making the call, and I was a little bit nervous about it. And we finally agreed that if I gave him a location, he would show up. He would not turn us down. And I just want to say we really appreciate, Bob, everything you did for the city. And I've heard from so many people that wanted to put this on today. Trey Henderson was unable to be here, but he was a big part of it. Carl Raypole, and many others. Bob Ensman over there. And in fact, we moved the date for Mr. Ashby over here, and inadvertently I moved the date to my 15th wedding anniversary. So, yeah, so, you know, we're all on board. But anyway, in saying that, there's a lot of people out there that want to see Bob Brown continue to be involved in Lufkin, Texas, because he's an ambassador for our community. And I want to say that you told me personally how involved you were with COVID, and you wanted to see that through. You wanted to see everybody vaccinated, and you wanted to get the city through the vaccination process and get everybody back on track. So if you will have it, we want to keep you as our representative on the Angelina County and City's Health District Board, because you've been such an asset there. So I want you to think about that.
You coward.
So you mill that around, and we have something to give to you today. In grateful appreciation to Mayor Bob Brown. I want to thank you again for being here today. Trent, next time you give out one of those rocking chairs, maybe let them sit down in it before you start talking. We got plenty of food here, and beer and wine and cake and other things, so please hang out, come up and say hi to Bob Brown, and tell him a story or two, and take some time to enjoy the company here today. Thank you again for coming out.